So today we're going to be talking about writing your family history and printing it or producing it in some sort of format. And obviously that's quite a big topic for a 1 hour session. I'm delighted that Tony Gray is here today with me on this session, and Tony, we're going to come to Tony in a little bit, and he is going to tell you what he can offer. But at the moment, to begin with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a guided tour of my Internet Explorer or my Google screen. So you can, I'm going to show you lots of websites that will be able to help you hopefully write your family history. So what's my background? Well, if you don't know me, I've been working at AJR for nearly 6 years now, and I joined AJR to run the My Story project. These are 2 examples of the books which we have produced. By the time we finish the few books which haven't been finished yet, we will have a collection of 50 individual life story books, hardback books, very nice quality. And I'm going to show you the website where you can read them all free online and get some inspiration from those. I've also written my own novel, which is based on my family history. My mother was a Holocaust survivor. That was traditionally published by Duckworth 2 years ago, selling nicely. So if you're interested in doing something like that, you can ask me about that at the end. So we're going to keep this quite brief and then leave plenty of time for your questions, because it's a relatively small group, and you can ask specific things if you'd like to. But as I said, there's a lot of information online. So I'm going to start with this. Now, Tony, can you see this?
Yes.
I'm sure they're the one who can speak. Okay,
Yes.
Lovely. So this is how I started to write my family history. And the reason that I started this piece of information is that we have I have one sister in England, and then I have cousins in America, and that's it. On my mother's side of the family, that's all the family that's left. And the 3 surviving children in this photograph here were all separated during the war, and the other 4 people in the photograph were all murdered at Auschwitz. But the 3 survivors all went off in different directions in France because of their age. My mum was one of the babies, baby twins, and she didn't remember very much. So what I wanted to know, first of all, is what happened to each of the 3 survivors and those who didn't survive, because they weren't together. So I wanted to write a timeline of what happened to each one, because it was all very confusing and no one really knew why this person was here when someone else was in, one was in Paris, the other one was in Toulouse or wherever. So that's what I started out doing, and that is something that I would definitely recommend to anyone who's writing a family history, to write a timeline. So that way you'll have various pieces of information, and if you put them in chronological order, you can see if there are any gaps and any areas where you need to do more research. And you can also see, if you're getting information from more than one source, if there are any discrepancies. Is there anywhere that looks wrong because of the timeline? So you've been told that person X was in Paris on this date or this month, and then someone else is telling you that they were somewhere completely different, in which case you might need to do more research. And it also really helps when you're writing the book to have a timeline, and you can tick things off once you've written about them. So that's all I wanted to do at the beginning. And when I had my timeline and information, I then produced this, I think it's 35-page Word. Here's Susan. Hello, Susan. I produced this, it's on Word, it's 35 pages. As you can see, I put some photographs in, and it's just the history of what happened to my mother's family during the war. And it was only intended for the family to read it, and it was for our children and our grandchildren, and that was why I did it. But in my case, and I'm sure this may well be the same case for a lot of you, is that I discovered this incredible story. So I decided to write a novel, and that was my personal choice. Some people prefer not to fictionalize things. I had some gaps. I wanted it to reach a wide audience. I wanted it to appeal to younger people, maybe get read in schools. And that is why I chose to write it as an adventure story. And that's how I did it. I have to say, I am a writer. I studied journalism. I've always worked in corporate communications. It wasn't easy. It took me 5 years, but anybody can write a book. So I would say definitely give it a go if that's something that appeals to you. If not, you could stick with a document like this, and then you have an electronic version, and you can print out copies or email them to whoever you want to read them. So that's one option of what to do with your family history. Okay, so I'm going to shut this one down now. I'm going to go to this one. I'm just going to see who the participants are, because I don't think that he is here, but there's a guy called Julian, produced this. He wrote his mother's story in this beautiful document. Okay, so this was made with Photoshop, and there are a lot of images in it, and he obviously has a lot of technical knowledge of how to do it. Some pages look quite similar to the document that I produced for my family story. It looks like it's been handwritten, but actually this is a font which Julian created himself based on his own handwriting. So yeah, that's pretty technical. He has a lot of photographs in, and I would say that black and white photographs reproduce really beautifully. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they're very evocative.
And sepia as well, it goes for the same. So photographs and documents, hopefully most people have. I know some people came out with nothing. Other people came out with albums and albums of photographs, particularly refugees from Vienna, for example. They tell me that they were the most photographed children in Vienna. Their mother took them to the photo studio once a month and came back with a lovely album. So that's one thing. And he did clever things like this, just to highlight the Nazi banner here, makes it even more powerful. Susan waiting again. So this is another sort of thing you can do. This is, as I said, 85 pages, and this is a PDF which Julian has put online, but he also printed out some high quality paper, some copies of it as well, and had them bound. So he got his own book in that way, and I think that's a really beautiful way, a very unique way of recording your family history. So those are two examples of what you can do with your family history. But first of all, you need to find your family history.
Survive the freezing winter with this revolutionary portable heater.
No. Sorry. Okay, so on the Association of Jewish Refugees YouTube channel, which is where this recording is going to go, there are 2 videos which I think you will find useful. And this one was from over 2 years ago. It's called Jewish History and Genealogy. And it features, hopefully you can see all these people. So Jeanette Rosenberg, who's German Jewish genealogy specialist, Debbie Cantor, archivist for World Jewish Relief, Elise Barth, who's the ITS researcher for the Wiener Holocaust Library. ITS is the International Tracing Service, which used to be called the Arelson Archives. And they have a lot of information there. And it was chaired by the editor of Who Do You Think You Are magazine. So it's definitely worth watching this video because it will help you to do your family research. Of course, you may be writing your own story, but it also will give you access to documents that you may not already have. There are an awful lot of document archives which are being digitalized all the time and being put online. So even if you think you've done all of your research, I would say it's always worth doing another check because new stuff is being published daily. I did all my research for my book, and after my book was written, I then found some new documents which I'd never seen before. For example, the registers from a school that my mother went to when she was in an orphanage, and I had no idea that she'd ever gone to school because my mother is the example of someone who never spoke about her experience because she was so young and she didn't remember anything. So I had to get all my information from other people. Okay, so this is definitely worth watching. It's a video here. Let's have a look who's chatting to me. Okay, I'll go back to that in a minute. So, and there are other interviews and sessions on the YouTube channel, which I hope you might find useful as well. So I'm going through this very quick. So as a result of that YouTube session, which I just mentioned, we had a handout from the Jewish Genealogical Society of Great Britain, which is 7 pages of links to places to find more information. Family Search, Gen Team, Austria. I'm not going to read these all out. You can see there's a lot of information here which can help you with your research. What I'm going to do at the end, or if you want to do it at any point, please, probably better if you email me, and I'll put my email in the chat when I finish sharing my screen, and I will send you a link, a document with all the links that we're looking at today, including this handout. And this handout itself has 7 pages of links on it. So you're going to be very busy looking at all these things, but I really hope it helps you with your research. And if you've looked at these things before, again, I would say it's worth having another look because there are new things being added all the time. Okay, so I'm just going through these websites, and I'm sorry if I'm not going in any logical order at all. But another thing I want to show you is this is the AJR My Story website. And these are all the people whose books are currently online. We have some more to add. Okay, let's look at George Vulcan, which was the first one to be printed quite a few years ago. Oh, it's not going. It's not clicking. Margaret's done. No, it doesn't want to work at the moment. Okay, so if you click on, if you click on any one of these names, you can read their book online. Okay, exactly. You can either download it as an ebook to a Kindle or an iPad, or you can view it online. And if you view it online, it can give you some nice ideas about design, how to use photographs, different writing styles, because each of these books were written by, although I did most of the final edits, but they were written by a different volunteer. So they all have slightly different writing styles. And the objective of this project was to retain the voice and the style of the person who was speaking. So they didn't write it themselves, but we wanted it to sound like them, so that in the future their children and grandchildren can pick up the book and read it and say, wow, that sounds like mum, that sounds like grandma speaking. So that was the objective. So have a look at this website as well. Okay. I do realize that I'm just talking and showing you lots of websites. So I'm going to ask, are there any questions at this point? Does anybody want to ask anything specific, just to, so you can stop listening to the sound of my voice for a minute? Please put your hands up. No? Okay, all right.
Someone's put their hand up.
Ah, okay, here we go. I've asked you to unmute. Yeah.
What I want to know is, if one's written it, at what point do you put the photographs in?
Well, that would depend on how you're going to, so you've written it. How are you going to print it? Do you want to print it yourself in an actual book?
Don't know.
You don't know. Okay, all right. So hopefully I will answer your question. Let me carry on, and I'll show you. I'll show you some options. Okay. Let's go back to share screen then. Okay. Right. I wanted to introduce you as well. If you're not familiar with Dropbox, this is a file saving service. So if you've done all your work and you've scanned your photographs in and your documents and things like that, you want to make sure that they're nice and safe and that they're easy to share with somebody else if you need to share them with somebody else. So I would recommend using Dropbox or another service. There are other services available as well which do similar things, but I have to tell you that I had an external hard drive which looks like, I'll show you, it's just like a little box on top of my plugged in to my computer, and it got corrupted a couple of weeks ago and I lost a lot of work. I thought that was a safe option, and it's really not. Apparently they're not very reliable. So I would really recommend using a web-based service to save your work, or a cloud-based service. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. I have a professional Dropbox account because I use it for AJR, and I can hold an awful lot of information in it. There is a free service which plenty for one book, so do look into it. I would hate to think that somebody puts a lot of time and work into something and then loses it, similar to how I did, so please don't do that. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So let's say you don't have your story yet, and maybe you're writing somebody else's story, and how you're going to do it. Well, the best way to get information is, and Tony might be able to add something here as well, is to speak to somebody who's still alive, and you can ask them questions. That's really the easiest way to do it. So I would say, if you need to speak to somebody to get information, do it now. Do it as quickly as possible, because time passes very quickly and you never know what's going to happen. If you're going to speak to somebody, interview them, I would suggest using a voice recorder app. Okay, this is my smartphone. This is a voice recorder app. I can record, it's really good quality, and I can save anything I record directly to my Dropbox account. So it's really safe. Okay, again, I'll put a link to this in, but if you've got a smartphone, you can just look on the App Store for a voice recorder and choose one that has a lot of positive reviews, because this one's a few years old now. Okay, so that's one way of recording. Another way of recording is using another app called Otter, Otter.ai, which stands for artificial intelligence, and that is a voice to text app. So you are recording, you are interviewing someone, it is recording and it's transcribing what they're saying at the same time. Okay, that's really, really useful if the person you're speaking to doesn't have a very strong accent, because if they have a very strong accent, they're probably not going to, it's probably not going to recognize everything they say, and then you'll have to go through it and correct it, and it might be quicker to just transcribe your own recording, like typing it up, but that's up to you. You can, of course, just write notes, but I would definitely recommend a voice recorder. And another reason for that is that if you're interviewing someone, you want to give them your full attention rather than looking down, writing notes, because it's going to encourage them to speak more openly. You can read their body language. There may be things, for example, someone's talking about, well, I came to England with just one suitcase. Well, what sort of suitcase was it? Well, it was that big, kind of thing. So if you're looking down, writing notes, you won't be able to see what they're showing. So it's a really nice idea that if you're interviewing, and you can do it over Zoom if the person doesn't live near you, but otherwise you want to give them your full attention while you're interviewing. So that's great. What about if there's no one to interview, or for a part of your book? So then I would suggest going to the video testimony archives. So for my story, one of my uncles, who was one of the survivors, is no longer alive when I started doing my research, and I managed to get a hold of a copy of his Shoah Foundation video testimony, which I transcribed and was really, really useful. I'm also a speaker for Generation to Generation, and I use part of his video testimony in my presentation when I speak to school children as well. So I got good use out of that. If you go to the Shoah Foundation website, you can request a copy of a testimony if you are a family member. And I'm assuming that you're going to be writing about your own family. Or if you're not a family member, but it was a neighbor or someone else, I think if you tell them the connection, they would give you a copy of, give you access to a copy of the testimony. So that's in the States. My uncle was in the States. Obviously, we have the AJR Refugee Voices video testimony as well, archive, which has 270 recorded testimonies at the moment. And if the person you want to get information from is on that archive, just contact AJR and they can give you access to that one as well. And there are lots of other video testimonies online. Had a meeting the other day with the Holocaust Museum of Washington, DC, the United States Holocaust Museum. And I think they said they had 30,000 video testimonies online. So hopefully, if you need to access or find one of those, they will also be able to help. So that's another really good resource. And I know a cousin of mine who lives in the States, went to Washington and gave in the family name and got 400 documents that related to our family, which we didn't know existed. So I'm not suggesting you'll fly out to Washington. That would be nice. But I'm sure a lot of this is online as well. And if it's not, then it probably will be soon. So that's a really useful thing. Quick mention about photographs and documents. Sorrel, is that how I pronounce your name? Sorrel? Yes.
Sorrel, yes.
You asked about photographs and documents, so you obviously have them already. If you have stuff to include in your book, and even if you have photographs and documents and you're not making a book, you're just here to pass an hour, scan them now. Okay, scan them now. Invest in a flatbed scanner. You can get a good one for £60 or £70. It's very easy to do. You connect it to your computer or laptop. They will be saved straight onto your device. And what you have to appreciate is that photographs fade, documents deteriorate, and it's a really good idea to make sure that you have a digital version and you can save them with a caption. If you're want to include them in a book, you scan a photograph, save it as, put the caption as the name of the file, or if there's something written on the back, which there often is for photographs, save that in the caption as well, and your children and grandchildren will thank you one day. So that's definitely something. Also, if you have more current photographs, or if you have albums and albums and albums, be selective. You don't need to do them all. I say current photos because now we tend to take 10 photographs instead of just one. You only need one. Okay, so that will save a lot of time, I think. So you've written something, you've got your photographs, let's say, for example, and you have an idea about what you want to produce with it. And what you need to do now is you need to edit your words, because, as I always say, if you're recording someone, if someone transcribed how I'm speaking now, I would be absolutely horrified, because I know I and a lot, and there's a lot of hesitation and deviation here, and that's not what somebody wants to read in a book. So you really need to go through what you've written and make sure it reads well. And so it's very important that you read lots of books yourself, so you know a good writing style. And my tip is to lock yourself. You don't have to lock yourself. Go into a room, shut the door, and read out loud what you've written. And that will, if it sounds good, then it will be good. If you're going to struggle yourself and you don't want to do it yourself, you can get a professional editor to help you. That's what I did for my book. And one company that offers this service is Book Printing UK, editing and proofreading. Okay. Book Printing UK, although it's got a bit of a naff name, I think it doesn't sound very interesting, but actually this is the company that I use to print all of the My Story books, and I find them very, very helpful and reliable, and they are a good price. So this is, if you're writing your own book, this is, they can help you design it, they can help you edit it and proofread it, and then they will print it for you. And I think, as I said, their prices are pretty reasonable. So this is definitely a printer that I would recommend. I'm not on commission, I have to say. That's one place that you might want to look at. And another place is Readsy. So Readsy is a marketplace of professionals in the book design, editing, proofreading world. So if you want to find a professional editor, you could go to readsy.com. Again, I'll send you the link. And otherwise, if you just go on their blog page, which is free for everyone to access, they have lots and lots of useful information about how to write a book. And they've got this one, 9 editing tips, how to self-edit your own writing with a checklist. And there's like 40 pages of blog posts like this. So if you've got an area in your writing that you're particularly stuck with, I would definitely recommend Readsy. That's where I found my story book designer, and that's where I found the editor of my novel, who then became my agent. So I would highly recommend that experience. Right. But so that was I told you I couldn't tell you how to write a story in an hour, but these are some tips. And as I said, don't worry, I'm going to send you links with a document with all the links, so you can while away the hours getting more information. But if you don't want to do it yourself and you'd rather pay somebody to do it for you, now I'm going to introduce Tony, who has been advertising in the AJR Journal for many years now. And I know he has worked very successfully with quite a few AJR members. And he is currently working with Susan, and I'll leave it for Tony to call on Susan. And he is going to tell us now what he can do for you. Over to you.
Thank you, Deborah. That's very kind. And thank you for letting me join you. Just a little bit about myself. My background is in research and writing. I've got a doctorate from Oxford in philosophy of religion, of all things. And after graduating, I went into the publishing world. I've worked in the personal memoir, biography, family history world for over 2 decades now. And I love my job. My job is basically helping people tell their life stories. And I've worked with a huge number of fascinating people, and every single one of them has been fascinating. I run a small publishing consultancy business called Words by Design, based in Oxford. And as Debra said, I've been advertising in the AJR newsletter for a while. I've also done some work with some of the AJR staff at various points in time. My company, Words by Design, is just one of many. So if you listen to me and don't like the look of my hair or my glasses and you want to find somebody else, then there are plenty of other people around who can help you. My company is, as I say, is called Words by Design. Let me just see if you can, that's our website, and you can go and look at it yourself. But we basically help people produce books. And we do a variety of books: novels, poetry, memoir, biography, autobiography, family histories, house histories, business histories. We've started doing histories of places of worship, so churches and synagogues. And last month we completed our first car history, if you believe it. There are people who are fanatical about cars and want to write about the life of their cars. But we generally focus on life stories and family histories. And these are the most fascinating ones to me. The way that I work with people varies enormously. So some people have written their whole story, they've done all the writing, and they just want help with the design and the print, maybe some light proofreading. And so we offer that. And as Debra showed, there are other people who will help with that. Interestingly, Book Printing UK is one of the printers that I use professionally as well. So there's 2 recommendations for them. And I work with about 20 different printers across the UK and the world, depending on the type of book that we're printing and the print run. Most of our books and our clients just have short print runs, because these are not famous people looking to make millions from book sales. It's very much people wanting to record their story for friends and family. So some people have written everything and they just want some help. Others have written something, but they need help with the structuring and the editing. And again, Debra gave you some good pointers on that. Readsy, which she mentioned, is a fabulous resource for finding professionals. if you just want help on a specific part of editing the manuscript. But a lot of people come to us and they've done quite a bit of writing, they've got some stuff, but they just need help putting it into a finished shape and form. At the other end of the spectrum, some people have written nothing at all. And the process that we then do is interviewing, researching, we write a draft, we edit the script in consultation with the client and the family, and then we create the whole book through design and printing as well. And then there's other clients, and this is when I come on to Susan, who is my favorite client at the moment, Susan Burns. Some come to us with a bundle of documents and notes, lots of stories told by the family, and basically they say help, and they want help in getting all of the information together and researching it. I'll pass over to Susan in a moment, but we're just coming to the completion of Susan's book. This is part of Susan's family tree at the moment, and this is on Ancestry, and Ancestry will only let you show a little part of it. So part of the process has been helping Susan and her family research the family tree and discover as much as we can about where the different branches of the family came from, what they were doing, how they made their money, why they left, all the many fascinating secrets in Susan's family. You won't believe how many there are. But that's just one example of a small slice of the family tree. And let me just see if I can get the right book up. So, as I say, the book is nearing completion. This is not what it's going to be called. We've changed the title. But if I flick through a little bit, we'll come up to, sorry, it will load in a sec. So the story is focused around Susan's father. He's the sort of crunch point of the story we're telling. And so we introduce it with a small photo of him. He changed his name to Michael Wilson. And then we set the history. We create a setting for what we're discussing, what we're looking at. They came from Vienna. So there's a short bit of history about Vienna. And then we go into the family and start telling the story. But I'll hand over to Susan for a minute, and then I'll come back and give some more examples. Susan.
Hi, everybody. I don't know what I would have done without Tony. I had 12 years of documents, diaries, dating back forever and ever, and I just wasn't getting any further. And thank goodness Tony the angel came into my life, and he's been sorting, and probably I've been driving him mad as well. But we've got so much further, and we go back from what, 1770 something? Yeah. To my father's side of the family until the present day. My parents never spoke about anything. My mother was from Berlin. So it's been a lot of skullduggery, thieving from my aunt in Vienna, taking all her stuff without her knowing, and passing it on to Tony, who's been a marvelous help. Thanks, Tony.
Oh, well, but your enthusiasm and what's great about Susan's story, and it's true actually, most of the stories I work on, is it's not just a list of dates. I showed you the family tree, but it's not a family tree that we're constructing. It's the stories that go behind it, the anecdotes. It's the aunt who was a professional stunt woman. It's all these secret little nuggets that come out and give life to the story and the family. Susan, there's some things that we've discovered on the journey. Are there any that stand out to you?
On the journey, well, I suppose on the journey that my father's first wife that we didn't know about until long after he died. Yeah. And luckily she was on that wall of remembrance, Debra, which was quite moving. Otherwise, no one would remember her. So that stuck out.
Go away.
Pardon?
Sorry. Oh, I need to.
Oh, and what else? There's so many nuggets that stuck out.
Was it Max who worked on the?
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, no, Walter Schonfeld, who worked on. You found that book for me. He was a correspondent, wasn't he, on the Nuremberg trials?
That's right. Yes.
And he covered the whole thing. And Tony found the only book that he'd written and got it for me. And I didn't even know he was my cousin, and put me in touch with cousins in Kentucky.
That's funny, yes.
That was unbelievable. So we've been in touch almost every week. They're not very knowledgeable, but we've told them a lot. But they did know Walter Schonfeld, who wrote the book. And they want to speak to us every week. And they wondered if London was in Europe. So we've educated them a little bit. Yeah, that was amazing meeting.
I think they're calling now, Susan. I think
Yeah, they are calling now.
All right, I've got John to answer it. So there are all these little things that Tony's got for me, like the Kentucky cousins. Oh yeah, when we went on the trip, I met that other cousin of mine, Andre Heller. Didn't want to meet me, but he did in the end. He's very famous in Vienna. It's just been so much. It's been such a journey.
It's been wonderful to work with, and what we're going to end up with is a beautiful book full of the photographs and all the various documents to pass on to the children, to the grandchildren. So Susan's my most favourite client at the moment, and a very recent one. Let me just share with you some other publications that we've done. Let's see if it does this. So that was Susan's. Okay. This one was, this is a good example. So Tony Abrahams came to me, and he'd actually, so he's a good example. He'd done all the writing himself. Tony was a very accomplished writer and was very humorous and skillful. And so essentially what we did was a design job trying to putting the book together and with maps and photographs, see what's going to load if it does, and putting in family trees into the book. So, and these are just small family trees to give a insight into different sections of the family. Sorry, it's being a little bit slow loading, but you get the general idea. There's text and maps. And he traces family at the majority of the book, actually. So the first third is the history in Poland. And then like many families growing up in the East End, and what his grandparents did to survive. So that was 4 or 5 years ago. So Bronya is an AJR member, and she playfully called her book The Story of a Bouncing Check. She was lovely to work with. She was very humble and self-deprecating, but again, an amazing story. And then, oh, not that one. Helen Hyde was another. This was a fun one to work on. The Schwarzschild family, the Blacks as they became in the UK. And actually, we used this wonderful photograph as the focus for telling the story. Because here in this photograph taken in about 1910, were in the middle here the two grandparents, or the great-grandparents to the people I work with, and their 7 children. And we traced their children and their descendants around the world. Some settled in England, some in Switzerland, others elsewhere. So we were able to follow them through, focusing on each child and then their successive families, some of whom, of course, sadly were lost in the Holocaust. So there are many other samples I could show you. I don't want to ramble on, and we want to leave some time for questions. The only thing I would want to say is do it. I mean, you don't have to do it with me. I'm not necessarily looking for clients, but however you're going to do it, it doesn't have to be an all singing beautiful printed color book. It can just be printed on a binder, but please do it. Your story is important. It's not just the great and the good. When people learn what I do, they say, oh, what famous people have you worked with? And I have worked with the famous people, but to be brutally honest, they're really boring. It's the ordinary people. And they've got egos as well, which is even worse. It's the ordinary people with the ordinary stories that matter. No one is insignificant. Every story has value. And when you're gone, so will your story be gone. So you don't have to sign up with me. You don't have to spend thousands. Just make sure you do it. And that's enough for me.
So thank you, Tony and Susan. That was really interesting. So I guess, I mean, one question that I've got before we open for other questions is, how do you stop yourself going even further? I mean, so a client comes to you, you know, you'll discuss the budget, I'm assuming, and you know, because it sounds like you do the research and the writing and the designing and the produce and the printing, take care of the printing and everything. You know, how you presumably you decide that at the beginning. Yeah, so
yes, or as you go along. So some people get into it and discover there's more and more and they want to. Other people are very focused, but they just want to follow a particular line or look at a specific snapshot. And of course, sometimes it is determined by budget and time, and that's absolutely fine. Some of the constraints are, of course, to do with records. As we'll probably all know, some records are very copious and there's lots available. Others are difficult to get to. At the moment, I'm just starting work with a family whose ancestors are from the Ukraine. And for obvious reasons, it's not an easy place to commission research at the moment. If somebody's asking me what to do if they're just starting, start with yourself, then go a generation back, and then see if that's enough. If not, then try and go another generation back. But get your bit down first, because that's the bit that's in you. And once that's gone, that's gone.
Wise words. Lovely. Any questions? Or Sorrel, did we are you still here? Oh, there you are. Did we answer the question about the photographs? Lovely. Any other comments or questions? Yes, John.
Yes, it's interesting that I'm trying to do my story, and I've sort of got stuck. And I think a lot of what you say is interesting. I'd like to ask both of you how much time to spend. My story should be about me. How much time do you spend on ancestry, and have you any preference between Genie and My Heritage and Ancestry?
So as far as the My Story books go, I always say to people, I ask for basic information about, so the people we're writing about, like yourself, are what I call the first generation. Okay, so let's get some information about your parents, and maybe just like names and dates and places where they were born of your grandparents. Unless they had anything, you know, everyone's different, unless your grandfather played some huge part in a war or something, or was particularly notable for some reason. For the My Story purpose, I wouldn't go into any great detail.
Okay.
Because you and your parents. Tony, do you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's the starting place. If it's your story, your parents, and obviously, if you have memories or information in your head about your parents, your grandparents, write that down. But get that done before you start doing the ancestry research.
I've just found a manuscript my mother did in about 1980, telling her life story.
Oh, wonderful!
That includes giving birth to me, and so there's a lot of good stuff there. I just wanted to mention that I got a local printer to digitize it, and he didn't use Dropbox, but I can send Debra the details of the software that he used to send me the file.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that.
On your question of which websites to use for the research, it's a difficult question to answer, but because they have their own pros and cons. In my experience, I've been using them for about 15 years now. Ancestry is probably the easiest and clearest if you're doing it on a desktop computer, but the other two are actually probably slightly better for specifically Jewish research. They are slightly better on the Jewish families and ancestry, and that's partly to do with demographics of where those programs originate from and who's been using them.
Yeah.
The difficulty with them, of course, is some of them have exclusive access to different resources that the others don't, and they all want you to pay. Yeah. The sheet that Debra was showing of links, actually, I haven't seen it, but seeing it quickly on the screen, what's interesting about a lot of that exclusive content is actually is available in other places. You just have to know how to find it.
That's right.
And I suspect some of the direct links will be on that sheet that Debra is going to share. So before you go spending, I mean, the Ancestry All Singing, All Dancing membership is 200 or 300 quid. So before you go spending that much, have a look at her links.
Well, it's a question of focusing time more than anything else.
Yeah, I would say that a lot of libraries have access to some of these sites. If you've got a library card, I know I'm in Barnet and I've got a Barnet library card, and there is access to, I think, Ancestry, or I don't know the names of them, but a lot of the sites there's free access for. So join your local library and then take out my book. Read it. Because I get 9p every time somebody borrows that in a library.
Oh,
so
very good. I'll certainly do that. And the other thing I liked from, I don't know which one of you, is maps. I'm fascinated by maps, so I'm going to use some of that. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Okay.
And actually, maps are really important. Just to say, maps are really important, because if these are being written for your children and your grandchildren and the next generations, they have very little idea of where the places are in the world. I mean, as Susan said, her first cousin in the States wasn't even sure if London was in Europe.
Right.
If that's an indicator.
Not anymore.
I got fascinated by Google Earth, using Google Earth for the various places that I know my ancestors were in.
Good.
Another interesting or important reason to use maps is, I mean, we've done one story, well, various stories about people who start off, well, I was born in this place, but it was called this in German and this in Poland, and now it's in Russia, but it used to be in Ukraine. Or so it's interesting to see how the borders changed over, well, during the last century. So yeah. That's another good reason.
One of the problems I run into is that I don't really speak German, and that a lot of the documents and the correspondence my father did and all the research is in German. And whereas one can beg favors for someone to translate a sheet, you can't come to them with sheaves and files. All in a language that I don't really understand.
My advice for that, so I can read German and I can listen to a bit, but for documentation it's very slow. There's a couple of really good freelancer websites where you can get people from around the world to translate documents for you just for a matter of pounds, really. One's called peopleperhour.com. and one's called Fiverr.com. Fiverr spelt with 2 R's at the end.
Peopleperhour.com.
And the second is Fiverr, Fiverr. And you can go on there and just advertise, I've got these documents in German to translate. Just upload, if you're able to, a sample picture or scan, and set a price. And these places are really full of students and postgraduate students looking to earn a bit of extra money. So if you choose wisely, choose on their reviews, you could get a good 20 pages of German translated for 15 or 20 pounds. And generally they're reliable and accurate. That's what I would recommend on that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea. But I have the same thing. I have documents in German and French, and
yeah,
I don't speak either of them. So I might try out Fiverr. I've used it for other things, but that's that's a really good idea. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Anybody else want to share?
Can I just say?
Yes.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
It's not a question, but I've been writing for the last 2 years, odds and ends, and I'm due to meet Tony next week, I understand.
I just
My question, which is very intellectual, is I hope our meeting is still on for next week, Tony.
Oh, absolutely, still on, Marcel. No problem.
I feel a little bit, I didn't do any research. I just talked about, or I just wrote about myself very amateurishly. And having heard people talk today, I feel as if I haven't done enough homework. And I hope Tony doesn't punish me.
I won't punish you. And that's the best thing. I mean, as Deborah was saying, starting with yourself and your story, you are the world's expert on yourself. So you've not done anything wrong at all. So I look forward to meeting you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Looking forward. There'll be a cup of coffee waiting for you.
Thank you.
Yes, Sorrel. Let's get you unmuted again. There we go.
I just wanted to know, I have put things onto Jewish Gen. I'm a member of the Genealogical Society and I've been writing stuff. And I did edit a major book once upon a time, but I got them published first in the Shemot, the Genealogical Society journal, and then it was put onto Jewish Gen. Have you any experience of working with Jewish Gen?
I use them for research a lot, and lots of their material is very, very helpful. I don't have any experience in that sense of working with them directly. I mean, they're, as a resource, they're invaluable.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I don't know them in that way.
And the other thing is for Yiddish translation, what would you recommend?
Well, that makes me laugh, because I saw a potential client yesterday who had some Yiddish, and I said, I'm going to ask my friends at AJR for some recommendations about that. So I can't answer that, but if anybody else can, then please share.
Well, I mean, there might be someone on Fiverr again who can who might be able to help with that. I mean, it's worth trying those two sites that Tony mentioned.
Yeah,
I think it's
because there's the trouble is there's a written Hebrew and there's a written Yiddish and a printed Yiddish, and they can normally do the printed but not the written.
Oh, right. Well, I know it's quite sort of in fashion at the moment, like in New York, they're doing, Yiddish theatre and things like that. So hopefully there'll be someone.
There's supposed to be a revival amongst young people.
Yes. Sonia, yes.
Trying to see if I'm still here because I can't see myself on here.
Oh, you are definitely still here.
I have written sort of my story since we came to this country. But I started it as a diary at the age of 12. And I rather continued it in the sort of style of a 12-year-old, I'm afraid. Really telling the story of where we moved. We moved all around this country. Through the organization that brought us out. And I really don't know whether it is of interest or not, because
I would say that if you've written it in the style of a 12-year-old, then it would be of interest to young people. Oh, we can't hear you, Sonia. Speak.
I'm showing you the title page. I printed it. In the days when I could still use a computer, I'm not much use at it now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Some of it is partly joking. This by the toes thing is explained but it's how it happened and how it came about. And I've just sort of got it printed on computer. I got somebody else to do the printing.
Yeah.
Since then, I think this was done about 20 years ago. I've tried to edit it because I tried to make a bit more sense out of it without much success. So I've got 2 more versions on my computer and I don't know what to do next.
Okay. Don't have too many versions on your computer because you'll get very confused. I went to meet a member once. Every time she opened her file to make a change, she saved it and she had about 4,000 versions and then she got completely confused. But 2 or 3 sounds fine. Yeah, I would say, Sonia, that, as I said, if you've written it in the voice of a 12-year-old, then it may well be interesting to
I
young
wondered
people.
about that because I wrote it for my grandchildren, but I haven't got any and never will have.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I unfortunately I'm not in a position to offer to read people's manuscripts and advice, but there may well be someone out there who would be able to give advice. Yes, Marion, you look like you want to say, is it relevant to what Sonia's saying? Oh, hold on, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I've done it now. I would love to read it.
Oh,
It sounds wonderful.
Well, that's lovely. See, that's a really important thing. That's a beta reader. So you've got someone now. If you want to, you can take each other's details and Marion can read it for you, because that's a really important part of writing a book, of the process, to get people to read it and give their opinion.
It just sounds very interesting and unusual.
It does. And just to add, I mean, don't think just because it's only what happened here in the UK, it's not that interesting. I always say to potential clients, if you think about the history that you've lived through, the social change that you've witnessed in the past 60 years, it's just remarkable. It blows your mind if you really do think about it. And to have that recorded by quotes ordinary people is valuable in itself.
Yeah. Social. Yes, Joan, I'm going to bring. Oh, Joan.
Yeah, hi. I just wonder if either of you have had any dealings with getting information from the Red Cross and through local council archives, for instance, in a small village in Hungary and in Romania. There's not much detail of my father's whereabouts in the war and where, you know, he was hospitalized at the end of the war, because both my parents were in concentration camps till the end of the war. But I just wondered, I had this contact about the Red Cross, and have you had any dealings with that line of research or inquiry?
I've dealt with some Red Cross information that was given to me by third parties, so I've not dealt with them directly. So I don't have any wisdom on that. I have done a couple of family histories. I mentioned one who originated from Hungary, and some local records are very, very good. Others are not. After this, I could give you some pointers on that if you like.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I think, Joan, there's probably some links on this handout from Jeanette Rosenberg that I'm going to share. So although she deals the handout has definitely got lots of stuff from abroad as well, but she does mainly deal with Jewish history in the UK. But check out the handout, because there's a lot of information there.
Yeah, I'll check both those.
Yeah.
Are you going to send it to me directly, Tony?
Let me.
Or Tony, do you want to send it to me and I'll just add it to the list of? It's up to you.
Yes,
so,
yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Actually, what I'm going to say is, if you don't already have my email address, because you didn't sign up for this, I don't have, although I know some of you, but if you want to email me,
I'll put mine there as well.
It's gone.
It's gone. If you click on chat at the bottom. Okay, so mine is Debra, Debra @ajr.org.uk, and Tony is Tony@wordsbydesign.co.uk. Sorry, you have to leave. Yes, goodbye. Goodbye, I've got you. Yes, I'm going to write down her email address so I can add her in case she didn't have time. Yes, Sonia.
Can you give me the name of the person, or give my name to her so we can get in touch? Person
where do you live? Where do you live?
I live in Croxley Green, which is not far from Rickmansworth.
Okay.
Hertfordshire.
Well, Sonia, do you want to do you want to give me your email address? Actually, are you a member, Sonia? Sonia, Marion, are you both members?
Yes.
Okay, so I will share your contact details, yeah,
Lovely.
with your
Okay.
permission. Sonia, what's your surname?
Schindler, Schindler.
Right, I will
A
do
distant
that.
connection to another Schindler who's recently published a book.
Yes, I have a copy here.
Not the Lost Cafe, the Lost Cafe.
That's right.
Wonderful book.
Yeah.
Did you say related or not related, Sonia?
Father was my husband's something cousin. I'm not sure. I'm not good on genealogy. But yes,
No.
there is a connection. It's not directly with me. It's with
Okay.
my lady.
Okay. It's a good book. It's a good book.
Mm.
Okay, well, we're 10 past. Tony at wordsbydesign.co.uk. Yes, I think that is correct. Is that Tony? Can you see on the chat? No, it's to me. Okay. Yes, Joan is correct. Sorry. Okay. All right.
Want my email address?
No, I'll get it from the database, don't worry.
And how will you send the information, Deborah?
I'll send an email to both of you, and then
But you're also your list, your long list.
And the list, yeah. I haven't written the list yet.
Oh, thank you so much.
Give me a couple of hours, but yes, I will. Yes.
Nice to meet you, and Sonia.
Yes, lovely to meet you,
and Tony.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up then. Tony, thank you so much. Thank you,
Deborah.
everybody.